Oh, middle of the frame. Let's get in the middle of the fucking frame. 6, 7. Yes, I get to work as, even if it's just slightly related to the medium that I love, which is comic books. I grew up reading comic books. They are a wonderful escape, and it's the reason why I am so in love with the shit that I love. Marvel, DC, superheroes, all of it bleeds across from why I love this shit so much. And a little story. I'm gonna tell you a little story now. I feel like I owe a lot of my life to it, and I love them very, very much. And I get imposter syndrome sometimes. Among Us, where I have a little goblin in my ear, chattering away at me, chattering. When in reality, I do know what I'm talking about. So I want to talk about some comics, and maybe I'll make this a regular thing. This one's going to be about my favorite comics of all time, and then I'll throw in a couple of things that I've read recently, because they're good. I've changed my mind. I'm doing the ones I read more recently first, because they're right down there. Matt Fracture's Batman. Everyone knows this. It's really goddamn good. It's very good. It's nice to see Batman be a bit more silly. Not like silly in like a kooky, I'm gonna run a bomb at some nuns sort of way, but just a bit more whimsical, and the suit is cool, and Matt Fraction, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't read anything past issue 1, because I'm an idiot, but it's really good. One of the first comic books I bought at my new job was Batman Deadpool. I really like this crossover. I think it was really well handled and really well done. Obviously there were some major characters that were missing, but that's all going to get handled in Superman, Spider-Man this year. I am Grant Morrison's biggest glazer, so the main story for Batman Deadpool just being this very weird meta character kind of look at these two people and how they tick. I love that shit. So this was one of the best selling comics of the year because it's good, and all the backup stories are really cool as well. Laura Kinney and Nightwing was one I wasn't sold on, and then in the story it's actually really cool because they kind of show that they are two sides of the same coin. They are legacy heroes being trained after this kind of dark brooding, mentor, which is really cool, and I didn't really clock that because again I'm a fat fucking chud. And my favorite story, like everyone, Constantine and Strange. It's very cool to see these two paragons of magic interact and kind of seeing how they both are in similar roles in their respective universes and seeing how their perspective on magic is different. It's very cool. I only have one comic to prove it, but I have been reading it. The Ultimate Universe. Yeah. Marvel didn't really know what they had. You could tell that the writers had more things they wanted to do within this universe, but because they had to fit it to the monthly format that they were doing, it kind of fell off. Amazing Spider-Man started out amazingly, and then he ends up doing nothing. Nothing ever happens. Image. The Ultimates is the best one out of all these. The Ultimates is fucking amazing, and the quality of that hasn't dipped at all. And also Endgame is weird, but I like it. And it is a shame to see this universe ending, but what can you do? It'll be a TP. Don't listen to your typical people who read comic books. Ultimate X-Men is awesome. Don't listen to them. I'm going to talk about my favorite comic books of all time and why I'm not a massive fraud. I am a fraud. But these are my favorite comic books of all time. If you're not into comic books, most of these I can say you can jump in and read. With some exceptions. Let's get this on the way. Number 10 is this one right here. Marvel's is quite possibly one of my favorite books of all time. It's a comfort book of mine, and it is really weird that a lot of people don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. It was the first book Alex Ross did for Marvel, and I like it because it's taking the fantastical idea of like Marvel's continuity and showing it from the perspective of a normal guy. The whole point, you follow this guy, Phil Sheldon. He's a photographer, and he was around when the Human Torch, the original Human Torch, was created. So he's a guy who got to experience the world without superheroes, and he was there for the first superhero. And then the book kind of takes place like over the course of like Marvel's Golden Age, and ends with the death of Gwen Stacy, so that sort of era. So you get to see lots of cool stuff happen from the perspective of normal guys. You get to see Captain America appearing, the Howling Commandos start to appear, the Defenders fighting the Nazis. You get to see the first appearance of mutants and how that prejudice would work with normal people. You get to see the marriage of Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm. You get to see the Kree-Skrull War from a human perspective, and you get to see the death of Gwen Stacy from a human perspective. It's really good. I don't see enough people talking about it. Maybe because it's like fucking 50 million years old. So that's a really good book, and I would suggest everyone read it. Alex Ross is very well known in the comics community for doing every single variant cover that exists. He was the Dan Moira of his time. I love Peter David's Hulk. When Hulk started, like a lot of Marvel books, it started as a very like one-dimensional idea. It started out as Stan Lee going, "What if a guy could fucking turn big?" And there you go. And Peter David does a really interesting job of kind of adapting Bruce's trauma and his abuse as a child, and kind of characterizing the different Hulks that have existed, instead of usually the different Hulk that have existed have just become like a retcon, or they haven't thought about it too deeply, but they've gone, there's a Savage Hulk and there's Joe Fixit Hulk, don't worry about it. And he's picked that up and gone, no, this is an example, like a big explosive comic booky example of multiple personality disorder, and it's really fucking good, and it's really interesting and really upsetting, and also like really heartwarming by the end, because that's where the book where I usually read it up to ends with the issue where Doc Samson is sitting them all down for a therapy meeting, and then all the stuff in that book happens, and all the emotional stuff happens, and then that ends with Smart Hulk. The next one is just X-Men in general. I grew up reading the Dark Phoenix saga, which I think is a wonderful place to start comics. It depends on your leniency towards how much information you like to get packed into a comic. X-Men comics from that era, or just comics from that era, was mostly bubble and a tiny picture, because they weren't fucking around. They had to grab your attention. With that X-Men book, just keep going till you get bored. As long as you do all the Dark Phoenix stuff and it ends with what happens on the moon happening on the moon, you're fine, and then you can just drop off wherever. New X-Men is like the whole reason why X-Men is good in the modern era. A lot of it comes from that. Krakoa and what happens there is such a fucking good idea, and it's an amazing bit of framework that the characters can draw from. Even now it's relevant. Yes, it is written by Joss Whedon, but unfortunately Astonishing X-Men is also really good, and is probably the best modern books for Cyclops, and Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde. Unfortunately, it's written by that thumb. X-Men in general is just really good. But if you want to get into reading it, you kind of have to start and move your way through. Most comic books are intended for you to pick it up and read at any point. X-Men, no. I don't have a script, by the way. I'm just fucking filibustering. Superman Birthright is one that I read more recently, which I love. If you want to get into Superman comics, it's a new origin. It was the more updated origin, and it's amazing, and it's really sweet, and it shows that Superman is a guy who just fights for the right thing. And for all of those fucking chuds who like to go, it's woke now. The first Superman movie ever released was called Superman and the Mole Men in the 60s, and it's about Superman telling humans off for being racist. My favourite comic book of all time, and for people who know me personally, this is not going to be a surprise, love Scott Pilgrim so much. It is a wonderful book. Like a lot of people who liked that series, I grew up reading it as a teenager, and you read it and it's fun. I didn't really get a lot of it. It was quick, the fights were fast, the dialogue was snappy, and the art was really nice before. But in book 5 or 6, I can't remember, they prove that Scott is an unreliable narrator, and they go, no, all the stuff that he talks about happening in the past definitely didn't happen the way it was. But as a teenager, I didn't get that. I just thought, Scott's awesome! I love women with dyed hair. Did irreparable damage to me in my adult life, by the way. And reading it again as an adult is fantastic, because it's just as good as I remember it, but now I read it and I'm like, oh, Scott's a fucking awful person. Really rude, and his friendship group is very weird, and he's got massive problems when it comes to attachment and like reading other people's emotions. Ramona is equally as aloof from emotionally, and I've read a lot of background material on it, and the way I read it wasn't through the original like manga sized books. I read it when they did the color editions in the 2010s, supplemental material in there, and Brian Lee O'Malley talks about that he based a lot of story and the characters off himself and his friends at the time and how they acted. And one of my favorite things about Scott Pilgrim is that even though it's very obviously taking inspiration from shonen anime, that's how it feels. It feels like these are real people in this weird situation. So if you haven't read Scott Pilgrim, or you have read it a long time ago, you owe it to yourself to reread it, because it is a really strong story about relationships and love and life and how you can act with each other. And those are some of my favorite comic books of all time. They're just throwing them out there. Some other stories that I've read and I like. We 3 is really good. Pride of Baghdad is really upsetting and is really good. I didn't mention a lot of DC on here. That's right, I'm a Marvel chud, baby. I'm a Marvel chud. Kingdom Come is really good. American Vampire is really good. Most of like quintessential Batman stuff that everyone says is good. Fucking Batman Year One, yes. Batman Long Halloween, Baby's First Batman, all that stuff. I don't like The Killing Joke. And that's because I'm a hipster. I understand its place in history, but I don't like it. Watchmen is really good. Go read that. V for Vendetta is really good. Gotham by Gaslight's really good. If you ever hear any like quintessential names of stuff, just go read it. If you want to get into comics, just go read it. You don't need to start anywhere specific. Captain America: The New Deal is really good. My favorite superhero of all time is Captain America. I really need to poo. I'm going to leave. Bye.